In 1863, Henry Nicholson Morse, better known as Harry Morse, was elected sheriff of Alameda County, California. He held the post from 1864 clear through 1878. With a knack for tracking, Morse became a legend in his own right, hunting down and capturing some of the most feared outlaws who troubled the western frontier. His skill and tenacity earned him the fitting name, Bloodhound of the Far West. The Bloodhound of the Far West, Harry Morse, took down several gangs in his day, many of them made up of California banditos who terrorized folks across Central and Southern California in the 1860s and 70s. Among the notorious outlaws Morse brought in was Procopio, also called Red-Handed Bebeto, Red Dick, Procopio Bustamante, and Thomas Redondo, a nephew of the famed Joaquin Murrieta. Procopio first ran afoul of the law for cattle rustling in 1863, earning himself a 9-year stay at San Quentin. He got out in March 1871, but his freedom was short-lived. Soon enough, he and his cohorts were back to rustling cattle in the Livermore Valley. This time, the law caught up with them. A warrant was issued and one of Procopio's fellow banditos was arrested and hanged. In 1871, Sheriff Harry Morse of Alameda County and Deputy Theodore Sam Winchell from San Jose were on the trail of a rough gang of outlaws. They tracked their quarry to a ranch house out in California's Sausalito Valley, close by St. Mary's Peak. Reining in near a stone corral, they climbed off their horses and asked a vaquero working nearby for a drink of water. Following the vaquero inside, Morse and Winchell stepped into a room crowded with locals, and Morse's eyes quickly landed on the man he'd been hunting, Juan Soto, the infamous bandito leader, sitting at a table deep in conversation. Wasting no time, Morse pulled his pistol and barked, "Manos arriba! Hands up!" Soto didn't budge, even after Morse repeated the command. Determined, Morse pulled out a set of handcuffs and told his deputy to lock up the outlaw. But Winchell was frozen in fear, unable to move. Frustrated, Morse snapped, "Put them on him, then cover him with your shotgun while I do it myself," Morse ordered. Instead, Winchell dashed out the door, leaving Morse to face the outlaw alone. Quick as a flash, a strong Mexican woman seizes Morse's gun arm, while another outlaw clamps down on his left, both of them yelling, "No shooting in the house!" Morse struggles against his attackers, while Soto takes advantage of the chaos, ducking behind a friend so he can unbutton his long blue military coat, which reaches down to his knees, and reach for the pistols hidden beneath. Breaking free just enough, Morse raises his gun and takes aim at Soto's head, but with his arms held back, his shot goes wide, only managing to knock Soto's hat off, sending it flying into the wall with a thud. Later, Morse would say he could have nabbed Soto if he'd fired through the shorter man in front of him, instead of shooting over his head to avoid harming an innocent bystander. In the dim, smoke-filled room, Soto seizes his chance. Grabbing one of his revolvers, he charges after Morse, who's just made it out the door. Out on the porch, Morse dashes toward his horse, hoping to reach his rifle in the saddle scabbard, but he quickly realizes Soto's too close. Morse collapses to the ground to evade Soto's fire at close range, after spinning around to avoid a bullet in the back. Watching from a nearby hill, Santa Clara County Sheriff Nick Harris sees Morse go down, but to his surprise, Morse springs back up and fires. Soto advances, levels his pistol, and fires again. Morse drops and rises once more, repeating the maneuver. From Harris's vantage, it looks as though Morse has been hit by every shot. In truth, Morse was firing back with every shot. During the final exchange, he lands a bullet that hits Soto's pistol just beneath the barrel, jamming it tight as the lead ball wedges against the cylinder. The impact drives the gun barrel hard into Soto's face, stunning him and sending him stumbling back into the house. Seeing Soto make a run for it, Deputy Winchell fires a blast of buckshot, but misses his mark. Seizing the opportunity, Morse clambers to his mount and extracts his Model 1866 Winchester from its sheath. Just then, Sheriff Harris arrives, drawing his Spencer rifle to join Morse in the fight. After a tense moment, two men burst from the house, sprinting for a horse tied to a tree about 40 yards away. Sheriff Harris levels his sights on the man in the long blue coat, but Morse quickly knocks the barrel upward, spotting the trick. Soto had handed over his coat to his partner and swapped hats to throw them off. What neither lawman realizes is that Soto is now armed with 3 fresh revolvers. Morse takes aim to put down the escape horse, but the spooked animal bolts, slipping free before Soto can grab it. Undeterred, Soto dashes for another horse saddled about 200 yards north. "For God's sake, Juan, throw down your pistols," Morse shouts. "There's been shooting enough." Soto ignores him, running hard for his chance at freedom. Though he's nearly out of range at 150 yards, Morse flips up his sight, aims high, and fires. Against the odds, the bullet finds its mark, tearing through Soto's right shoulder. Soto stumbles, his wound taking its toll, but the determined outlaw turns and charges toward his enemies, pistols raised, trying to close the distance. Sheriff Harris takes a shot, but it goes wide. Morse works the lever of his rifle, chambers around, and takes careful aim. Over 100 yards away, he squeezes the trigger. The big 66 roars, sending the bullet on a long, low arc. It strikes Soto square in the forehead, just above his eyes. Crumpling into the grass, the criminal falls to the ground, dead. Juan Soto was sought for his involvement in the January 10, 1871, robbery at Thomas Scott's store in Sunol, California, during which he shot and killed clerk Otto Ludovisi. Before his final confrontation with Sheriff Harry Morse, Soto had slaughtered a beef for a planned fiesta. He then rode from Juan Alvarado's adobe to Juan Lopez's house to borrow salt and onions for his barbecue, where Sheriff Morse eventually found him. Morse learned that Bartolo Sepulveda might have been the second outlaw who switched coats with Soto. Sepulveda managed to escape at the time, but was later convicted for aiding Soto in the murder of the store clerk. However, California Governor George Stoneman believed Sepulveda was innocent of the killing and pardoned him in 1885. After his showdown with Soto, Sheriff Morse earned a reputation as the West Coast's most renowned manhunter. Over the next 20 years, he captured a host of desperados, including Black Bart, the infamous stagecoach robber responsible for 29 holdups. Black Bart, known for his poetic messages and his reputation as a gentleman bandit due to his refined manners and style, terrorized Northern California and Southern Oregon during the 1870s and 1880s. Robbing Wells Fargo stagecoaches at least 28 times between 1875 and 1883, he became a prime target for the company's relentless pursuit. Black Bart's capture came about after he dropped a handkerchief at a robbery, marked with the laundry mark FOX7. Sheriff Morse, working for Wells Fargo, teamed up with Wells Fargo detective James B. Hume to search every laundry in San Francisco in hopes of finding the mark. Eventually, they found a laundry between Kearny and Montgomery on Bush Street that recognized the mark and identified the handkerchief as belonging to Charles E. Bolton. When the clerk was questioned further, it became clear that Bolton worked as a miner. Morse, posing as Charles Richmond, told the clerk he wished to consult Bolton about some ore he had. He also found out Bolton's San Francisco lodging arrangements. Morse visited the small hotel where Bolton kept a room and conducted a thorough search. All he found was a worn Bible with an inscription from Mary Bowles to her husband. This led Morse to two conclusions. One, that Black Bart was Bolton, and two, that Bolton's true name was Bowles. When Bolton, identified by the Fox 7 mark, showed up at the laundry, Morse lured him into Hume's office under the pretense of discussing ore. "I knew he was Black Bart the moment I heard his hollow voice," Morse later recalled. When the clerk was questioned further, it became clear that Bolton worked as a miner. Both Morse and Hume interrogated Bowles, who soon realized he had been apprehended. He chose to remain silent, but Morse, determined to get a confession, played a mental game with him. Eventually, Morse persuaded Bowles to confess, arguing that doing so would save the government a great deal of money and might lead to a more lenient sentence. Bowles considered the offer, then agreed, but only after negotiating terms regarding his sentence and an early pardon. In the end, the deal was struck. Bowles would serve 7 years in the state penitentiary, with a pardon granted after 2 years. Along with bringing an end to Black Bart's reign of terror, Sheriff Morse dismantled the Harkins opium smuggling ring, leading to the prosecution of a corrupt federal magistrate in San Francisco. Morse also tackled the DuPont Street frauds in San Francisco in the 1880s. Later, in 1895, he assisted in the high-profile case against Theodore Durant, a man accused of committing a series of brutal murders. Durant, dubbed the Beast in the Belfry, was charged with the murder of 20-year-old Blanche Lamont, whose body was found in a church belfry. Morse's final and most notable case was the investigation into the poisoning death of Jane Stanford, co-founder of Stanford University. His lawman career stretched across 5 decades, during which he earned a reputation as one of the West's finest. In the end, Morse passed away quietly in his bed, leaving behind a $100,000 estate for his heirs.